There's been so much conversation about the Nintendo Switch 2, but not really about the console itself. Most people have been talking about the pricing and everything that Nintendo is doing regarding that facet, because that is probably the weirdest thing we have seen from Nintendo in a very long time. Now, they came out of the gates swinging with a $450 price tag for the Nintendo Switch 2 console itself. But also, and maybe the more controversial thing, they also came out the gate swinging with an $80 MSRP game, which is crazy. Super, super crazy. So we're going to talk about all that pricing today, but before we get into it, I do want to let you guys know that there's been a lot of weird misinformation out there, and a lot of people are thinking that the digital game of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is going to be $80, and physically in the United States is going to be up to $90. That is not accurate. It's going to be $80 both ways around. There's just some other territories that are adopting that price range, I think. I don't really know exactly what's going on over there as well, but at least in the United States, we do not have $80 digital games and then $90 physical games. Trust me on that. But let's get into the wild pricing structure, and let me just be clear, I'm not super happy about any of this, because as a college student, as a young person in the United States, in the economic standing that we're in right now, none of it is great to hear, okay? So right away in this presentation, Nintendo didn't really tell us anything about the pricing in the Direct itself. We didn't hear anything until a while after, in fact, and that wasn't really until people started searching around Nintendo's website itself. And the only way I was able to find it was that Stealth, I think on Twitter, had uploaded a link to the Nintendo website that asked if you were interested in the Nintendo Switch base unit or the bundle with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. The base unit of the Nintendo Switch on this website at the time was priced at $450. $450 was a lot more than I was anticipating. Like I said in the beginning, I really didn't anticipate them ever going over $399, just because it felt to me like they wanted to be that consumer, they wanted to be that sort of family-friendly, like, family option. You know what I'm saying? Like, they want multiple people to have Nintendo Switches, so I assumed to be the same for the Switch 2, but it looks like they're going in a little bit of a different area here. There was also on that same website a bundle that included Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for $500, and that's a lot cheaper than the base price of $80, so that might be a good way for you to go personally, but it's a digital copy, so people are also feeling pushed towards the digital future, which a lot of people also do not like, which is another way that it's upsetting in a lot of ways, right? But regarding the $450 price tag, I think that it was a little bit of sticker shock at first, right? I was not anticipating such a high price for the Nintendo Switch 2, but this is more acceptable, in my opinion, with the upgrades that they were able to stuff into the Switch 2. The system itself, spec-wise, is really damn impressive and much more of a powerhouse than we are used to Nintendo competing with. They're also still priced under the PlayStation 5, and competitively with Xbox, the Series S, I believe, is like $400, so maybe not quite as much with that, but the system does seem to be up to snuff, at least a little bit, with the modern day consoles, so I do think just because of all of the power that they're pushing into this thing, the little bit more pricier price tag makes a little bit of sense, unfortunately. Again, I do want to reiterate, people have been coming at me this entire week talking about how, I'm a YouTuber and I don't understand this stuff. I'm going to tell you guys a little peek behind the scenes. I have 20,000 subscribers, which I'm very grateful for, and I make a little bit of money off of YouTube, but it is not enough to sustain any sort of livelihood at all. So this console being as expensive as it is still affects me. Okay, in a lot of ways it does, because again, I'm telling you guys right now, I'm a college student. I don't have fucking money out the wazoo. I don't have a real job yet. I'm trying to figure everything out right now. So a charge like this doesn't mean nothing to me. It's something I need to budget for. It's something I need to, think about. But again, I am also a Switch Nintendo YouTuber, at least trying to be one. So I am going to get the system so that I can talk about it and make videos on it and ideally maybe recoup some of that money after a couple months. But again, it's not just an auto thing that, oh, she doesn't understand our perspective because she's a YouTuber. And also, I do understand your guys' perspective because I have a lot of friends who are just normal gamers who don't do this kind of stuff, who I've been friends with for years, who are very casual Nintendo fans, and to a lot of them, they are still into the system. Some of them wrote it off as too expensive, but again, it's a personal decision. If it's not worth it to you, it isn't worth it to you. This needs to be a personal financial decision for you. You need to not let FOMO drive this purchasing decision, especially if it's something that's going to impact you significantly economically. Do not put yourself in any sort of hole to get this system. I'm just explaining where I'm coming from here so that people ideally can understand my perspective a little bit better, because I've been getting a lot of people misunderstanding me and my situation and all of that kind of stuff, okay? So $450 for a system that outputs 4K, a tablet that has a really good LCD screen with 1080p, 120 FPS capabilities, performance mode, gameplay mode, things like that in Metroid Prime 4, and really just impressive specs that, again, like I've been saying, can keep up to modern day consoles, so ideally third parties and stuff can stay more consistent for the system long term. We've already seen it with games like Cyberpunk 77 coming to the Nintendo Switch, Elden Ring coming to the Nintendo Switch. Those are big gets that could never ever run on the base system that we have right now. The base system, the price tag of $300 is extremely appealing, and obviously I wish they stuck with something like that, but I can definitely see Nintendo doing things down the line, maybe to lessen the price. Maybe we get a Nintendo Switch 2 Lite of some sort that ends up being $300, right? And everything right now economically is getting priced up the damn wazoo. Gas prices are up, rent is up, everything is up right now, unfortunately, except for wages. And I do want to just specify that this is just my experience as someone living in it. This is not me having like an economics degree or really understanding too much about that, but I'm someone living it, so I understand it to that degree, okay? So everything's going up right now, and eventually game systems are going to have to follow. I was watching the Spawncast last weekend that I unfortunately wasn't on because I had mouth surgery. I'm still dealing with it right now. I'm trying to get through this video and stuff like that. It's not too bad, but I was watching that, and Gene Park was talking about how the video game industry has obviously been hurting for a long time. Financially, they can't do things to control the budgets right now. For some reason, they are ballooning way out of control. So the idea of just more expensive consoles is definitely a thing we're going to have going forward, and Gene specifically referenced the idea of $80 games. So transitioning into that idea, the idea of an $80 Mario Kart game is crazy, in my opinion. It's really truly a wild asking price for the game. So, again, I'm going to say something. If this is a game that isn't worth it to you, nobody is forcing you to buy it. Do not buy it if it's not a game that you want to play. Don't feel bad about it, just don't get the game, you know? I think this is a culmination of a couple things. Obviously, like Gene said, the gaming industry has been hurting for a long time. They are trying to push towards the $70 base price tag, and a lot of companies have been doing that, but he said that it seems like companies need to go to that $80 price point to recoup some of those funds that they have lost funding the project itself. That is a terrible, shitty reality that all falls on the consumers. Because again, like I mentioned earlier, wages aren't really going up. There's a lot of things that it's just things are not happening for the consumer to make $80 viable. But for the companies, $80, like Gene said, makes sense. And so I agree with it. I think it sucks. I think it's unfortunate. And I think a lot of it does lean into Nintendo being a lot more confident in this generation. They know that they have a banger here. They're not trying to come out of the Wii U as this humble company who needs to build themselves back up. They banged with the Nintendo Switch 1. They're going into the Switch 2 generation confident, maybe overconfident, you know? They're pricing their game at $80. That blows. That really does. There's no excuse for it. I think it sucks. Personally, am I gonna get the game? Yeah. But again, I'm also a YouTuber, and I'm gonna make content about it. I'm gonna have, this is gonna be like a viable thing for me. It's gonna be worth it for me personally, but if I didn't do all this YouTube stuff, would I go out and buy a Switch day one? Would I go out and get the new Mario Kart without there being any sort of sale? Probably not. Maybe what I would do is get the $500 bundle. The $500 bundle for the Nintendo Switch 2 comes with the system as well as the game. So you end up paying around $50 for the game, right? And that's a much better, option for a lot of people. So if you're a casual player, do that. But then it's also a problem of that's a digital copy. Nintendo's obviously pushing towards this more digital future, which a lot of people hate. I think it sucks. A more digital future is not something that I want to head towards but unfortunately, it looks like that is the way gaming is turning. That is the way a lot of physical media has been going. Music, movies, everything like that has really turned to this all digital future because it's more convenient for people, and gaming has held on to physical games for a very long time, and I really hope it continues to do so, especially Nintendo. I have a huge physical collection right here. I buy almost exclusively physical games because I care about physical media and actually owning those games. But, a lot of people don't. There's a lot of people that aren't you and me watching this video. There's a lot of casual Nintendo fans who that doesn't go through their head. You know what I'm saying? So if you're that concerned about the price, there's a way to get it cheaper, is all I'm saying. And that's unfortunate, and it sucks. But ideally, $80 is not the norm of video games. I was streaming last night. Somebody in chat had mentioned that maybe it's $80 because they're including support down the line, like DLC for a couple years of new tracks, new characters. Think about the booster course packs that they did for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the original Nintendo Switch, We had 24 new courses that basically double the size of the system, and that DLC pack was $20. So I guess if you put that together with a $60 game, it could equal $80. And maybe if we have consistent support for this game, consistent updates for a few years on top of obviously having a completely finished game day one, that could also be part of why they're validating this $80 price tag. Again, I just need to reiterate, I'm not happy about it. I think it sucks. $80 is not something I want to pay. I think that's obscene. I grew up buying the $20 Nintendo Selects games from GameStop for the Wii U. You know, that was like most of my Wii U library is made up of those types of games, okay? Since I've started working, most of my money that I have had for fun has gone to buying Switch 1 games. And it's gonna be a similar thing, unfortunately, with Switch 2, and that's the only reason I've been allowed to fund this. But again, like, for a kid, this sucks. For a family, this sucks. It all sucks. There's nothing redeemable about it, but there are some things that we could sort of think about to maybe justify Nintendo's thinking of pricing it at $80, because I'm going to tell you guys right now, the ideas of boycotts, things like that, we've seen it happen with the Pokemon games. We've seen people really try to organize these things. It's not going to happen, and it's not going to change Nintendo's mind. They have to do what they have to do to stay a viable company, and if that means being greedy, they're unfortunately going to have to do that. Being greedy and corporate and shit like that, it's unacceptable. It sucks. But as the consumer, what are we supposed to do? Now, the 3DS came out to a pretty high price tag back in the day, and they ended up cutting that system and putting the ambassador program alongside of it, right? They made that system a much cheaper experience. They allowed people to get in on all levels. Maybe that's what happens here. Maybe it flops. If you don't want to get the system, don't get the system. But I also don't think that we should be mad at people for being excited, and also, you know, for one, like, people like me and a lot of you probably watching this have been looking forward to the idea of the Switch 2 for years to come. The idea of Switch 2 as a gamer, as a Nintendo fan forever, as someone who had the Wii U, is exciting, you know? It is. It truly is. And so I think we need to not take away people's excitements at the same time. We can be critical of the system. Obviously, we can be critical of the price point of games. It sucks. Nintendo games never go on sale either. I mean, most of these titles are still sitting at $60 MSRP, 8 years later. That sucks. That's annoying. But it's how Nintendo operates. So you can sit back, you can, not want to be involved in it, and that's totally up to you. That's a personal decision, and that's fine. I just think that we should not freaking freak out on people who have maybe just accepted that this is something they unfortunately have to deal with, and they're going to find the means to still support this hobby that they care about, It's, again, I've said it 40 times in this video already, and sorry my voice sounds weird. It's like my teeth are all my front two teeth are a little fucked up, and they're going to get completely fixed on Wednesday, but it's been a bunch of shit for surgery and stuff, so if I sound weird, that's definitely where it's coming from. But, what can you do, man? It's going to be an expensive generation. PS5 games are already $70. We have seen that Nintendo is also checking out the $70 price point, with Donkey Kong Bonanza being $70. That game looks amazing. That's my most anticipated game for this entire year. I've never been more excited for a game coming out than I am for that one. Donkey Kong Bonanza looks phenomenal. I've been watching all the tree houses. That looks like a banger game. $70. Is it going to go down from $70 anytime soon? Absolutely not. That blows. Again, it blows. But that is on brand with the rest of the gaming industry, at least right now. Mario Kart is obviously the outlier here, and hopefully that is a price point that they never touch again. A price point that they have realized, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sold immeasurable units that, are just absolutely obscene, like 70 million or 60 million units. So they maybe think, people are going to buy Mario Kart regardless, so we can charge a little bit more for this game that is completely revamping the series. It's maybe taking us 10 or so years to develop, or whatever the hell. But hopefully that doesn't go for every single game, because I will have to be a little bit more picky and choosy with games that I dive into and stuff, because $80 is not a joke. $80 is a lot of money. All of it is a lot of money. It's all a lot of money. This has never been an inexpensive hobby, though. And it sucks to say that, but it hasn't. So I think this is going to be a generation of really prioritizing games that look fun to you, prioritizing games that you want to see, making sure you're, researching the games that you're about to go buy, because you don't want to waste $80 on a stupid game, or even $70 at that point, right? But that's my thoughts on the pricing. I think it sucks, but I have accepted that I have to buy it. I'm also trying to do YouTube and content for it, so it's gonna be a thing that I'm gonna check out. And I completely understand if some people out there feel burned by this and are just gonna skip it, because to a lot of people, it could absolutely not be worth it. And if it's not worth it to you, don't let people push the idea that it needs to be a system that you need to get if you don't want to buy it. And especially if you weren't a Nintendo fan before, I don't know what this is going to do to turn this around for you, you know? More power for sure. That FromSoft game looks weird and crazy. I'm probably going to make a whole video about that. But, like, it's still a Nintendo system. It's finally catching up to the big boys of the gaming industry, and that's exciting. But $80 games also sucks. It's a give and take here. But genuinely, I am really excited for a lot of the stuff surrounding the system still. It's taken a little bit of the wind out of its sails, obviously, from that original presentation, just because of finding out the pricing and everything and how Nintendo is being a bit greedy. The Welcome Tour being rumored to be $10 is obscene. That being paid in any capacity is wild. That is not worth it. That's Nintendo being greedy. That's them being careless. That's them being insane. So that combined with Mario Kart's price tag, I understand why people are outraged. Stay outraged, give your opinion out there, but don't freak the hell out when people are buying the system because they're genuinely excited for it. You know what I'm saying? I think we all just have to let people live their lives and make their own decisions with their own money at the end of the day. But that's just what I think. What do you guys think? Am I entirely wrong? This is going to be probably a weirdly polarizing video, I can assume. I'm not trying to sit out here and be offensive or do all this shit. Also, Nintendo just announced that pre-orders aren't even going live for the Nintendo Switch 2 on the 9th, like we originally anticipated, and they're going to be happening later because of Trump's stupid tariffs and all he's doing to mess up our government and things like that. Made a short about that, so if you're interested, watch it. If you're not, whatever. It's crazy that the Nintendo Switch 2 has led to all of these just wild conversations about the state of the economy, but it makes sense. Pricing is high, tariffs are higher. Trump's America, ladies and gentlemen, it sucks. Check out this video. It's a banger, it's a vibe, it's a good time. I'll see you over there. If you're giving me death threats about not liking the president, he sucks, dude. I'm a woman. I don't know what you think. Don't like it that he takes away my rights, and now the Switch 2.